Hello, 9th graders! This is Teleradyo Eskwela, Tara na! Welcoming you to Mathematics 9. We are glad to be with you in this new normal journey of schooling through a radio broadcast. I am your Teleradyo host, Melissa Pibuco from Tagum City National High School. Stay tuned and be one of a kind Matalino student. We would also like to thank our radio partner, Hope Radio 107.1 PXHS, where we are airing our lessons for junior high school. Thank you for your generosity. And today, you will be learning another exciting topic, a lesson particularly in grade 9 mathematics, quarter 3, module 1, quadrilaterals that are parallelograms. Before we begin, I would like you to get your modules, your notebook, and your pen, and be comfortably seated in the comfort of your homes. This topic will be brought to us today by teacher Anabelia Amodia from Tagum City National High School.
Hello, dear students! Now that you are all settled in your homes, bring out your pens and notebooks and your learning module, specifically Mathematics 9, Quarter 3, Module 1. Here are our objectives for today. At the end of the lesson, you should be able to identify quadrilaterals that are parallelograms and determine the conditions that guarantee a quadrilateral a parallelogram. Before we begin the formal discussion on our topic for today, let us first find out how much you already know about this topic. You will have a pre-test. I will be reading each question in this activity twice, then you will write your answer on a separate piece of paper. Is that understood? Question number 1. Which of the following statements is true? Letter A. Every square is a rectangle. Letter B. Every rectangle is a square. Letter C. Every rhombus is a rectangle. And letter D. Every parallelogram is a rhombus. I repeat. Which of the following statements is true? Letter A. Every square is a rectangle. Letter B. Every rectangle is a square. Letter C. Every rhombus is a rectangle. And letter D. Every parallelogram is a rhombus. 5 seconds starts now. Time is up. The correct answer is letter A. Every square is a rectangle. Question number 2. Which of the following statements could be false? Letter A. The diagonals of a rectangle are congruent. Letter B. The diagonals of an isosceles trapezoid are congruent. Letter C. The diagonals of a square are perpendicular and bisect each other. And letter D. The diagonals of a rhombus are congruent and perpendicular to each other. 5 seconds starts now. The correct answer is letter D. The diagonals of a rhombus are congruent and perpendicular to each other. Question number 3. Which of the following conditions is not sufficient to prove that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram? Letter A. 2 pairs of sides are parallel. Letter B. 2 pairs of opposite sides are congruent. Letter C. 2 angles are supplementary. And letter D. 2 diagonals bisect each other. I repeat, which of the following conditions is not sufficient to prove that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram? Letter A. 2 pairs of sides are parallel. Letter B. 2 pairs of opposite sides are congruent. Letter C. 2 angles are supplementary. And letter D. 2 diagonals bisect each other. 5 seconds starts now. The correct answer is letter C. two angles are supplementary. You are now ready to proceed into the next part of our lesson. We will now discuss quadrilaterals that are parallelogram. Try to picture out some of the figures that can be seen everywhere, such as Scrabble blocks, solar panels, kites, traffic signage, and satellites. Can you determine the significance of their designs and some disadvantages that might happen in changing their designs? Let us recall the definitions and the types of quadrilaterals. Quadrilateral, a closed figure consisting of four sides. We have types of quadrilaterals. Parallelogram, a quadrilateral with two pairs of parallel sides. Rectangle, a quadrilateral with four right angles. Rhombus, a quadrilateral with four congruent sides. Square, a quadrilateral with four right angles and four congruent sides. Kite, a convex quadrilateral with two pairs of adjacent congruent sides such that not all sides are congruent. Trapezoid, a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of opposite sides are parallel. Now, this definition that had been taught before can be used in determining which quadrilaterals are parallelograms. Now, anybody from the class who can identify the different types of quadrilaterals that are parallelograms. We have types of quadrilaterals that are parallelogram. We have rhombus, rectangle, and square. All the shapes have parallel opposite sides. This means that all the closed figure shapes are parallelograms. A rectangle and square show properties peculiar to their names as well. What are the conditions that make a quadrilateral a parallelogram? Condition number 1. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. Given parallelogram ABCD, side AB is congruent to side CD, and side AD is congruent to side CB. If side AB is 10, then CD is also 10. If side AD is 8, then CB is also 8. What do you mean by congruent? Congruent means equal and measures. Condition number 2. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. Given parallelogram ABCD, angle A is congruent to angle C, and angle B is congruent to angle D. So if angle A is 93 degrees, then angle C is also 93 degrees. Angle B is 87 degrees, then angle D is also 87 degrees. Now let's proceed to condition number 3. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if pairs of consecutive angles are supplementary. Given parallelogram ABCD, measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B is equal to 180 degrees. So if angle A is 93 degrees plus angle B is 87 degrees, the sum of the angles is 180 degrees. Measure of angle D plus the measure of angle C is equal to 180 degrees. Measure of angle A plus measure of angle D is equal to 180 degrees. Measure of angle B plus measure of angle C is equal to 180 degrees. What do you mean by supplementary angles? Supplementary angles are two angles whose sum is 180 degrees. How about consecutive angles? Consecutive angles are angles that follow continuously. Let's proceed now to condition number 4. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if the diagonals bisect each other. Given Parallelogram ABCD, line segment AC and line segment BD are diagonals. Point E is the intersection point of the two diagonals. Line segment AE is congruent to line segment EC, and line segment BE is congruent to line segment ED. What do you mean by diagonal? It is a straight line joining two opposite corners. How about bisect? It is a segment that divides into two equal parts. Condition number 5. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if each diagonal divides a parallelogram into two congruent triangles. Given parallelogram ABCD, line segment AC is a diagonal, so triangle ABC is congruent to triangle CDA. And line segment BD is also a diagonal, so triangle ADB is congruent to triangle CBD. The last condition is number 6. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if one pair of opposite sides are congruent and parallel. Given parallelogram ABCD, side AB is parallel and congruent to side CD, and side AD is parallel and congruent to side CB. You've just learned the different conditions that guarantee that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. Always bear in mind those conditions to help you and guide you as you go on and be oriented with the different parts of a quadrilateral, so that it is easy to determine their corresponding parts. That ends our lesson for today. Before we proceed to our assessment, let us have a review of the things that we discussed. What are the types of parallelogram? Rhombus, rectangle, and square. How about the conditions that guarantee that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram? Number 1, a quadrilateral is a parallelogram if both pairs of opposite sides are congruent. Number 2, a quadrilateral is a parallelogram if both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. Number 3, a quadrilateral is a parallelogram if pairs of consecutive angles are supplementary. Number 4, a quadrilateral is a parallelogram if the diagonals bisect each other. Number 5, a quadrilateral is a parallelogram if each diagonal divides a parallelogram into two congruent triangles. And number 6, a quadrilateral is a parallelogram if one pair of opposite sides are congruent and parallel. At this point, please ready your quiz paper and your pen. Listen carefully so that you can get the correct answer. Are you ready? All right. Question number 1. What condition guarantees that the figure is a parallelogram? Why did you say so? Given parallelogram WXYZ, side XY is 9 and side WZ is also 9. Side WX is 13 and side ZY is also 13. 5 seconds to answer. The correct answer is a quadrilateral is a parallelogram if both pairs of opposite sides are congruent, since the measure of side XY is equal to the measure of side WZ, and the measure of side WX is equal to the measure of side YZ. If you got it right, well done. Let us proceed to the next question. Question number 2. What condition guarantees that the figure is a parallelogram? Why did you say so? Given parallelogram CAM, line segment CM and line segment OE are diagonals, and point S is the intersection point of the two diagonals. Line segment CS is congruent to line segment SM, and line segment OS is congruent to line segment SE. 5 seconds starts now. Time is up. The correct answer is a quadrilateral is a parallelogram if the diagonals bisect each other, since markings of the segments show that they are congruent. Question 3, 4, and 5 are fill in the blanks. Number 3. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if one pair of opposite sides are blank and blank. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if one pair of opposite sides are blank and blank. 5 seconds starts now. The correct answer, congruent and parallel. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if one pair of opposite sides are congruent and parallel. Question number 4. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if both pairs of blank angles are blank. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if both pairs of blank angles are blank. 5 seconds starts now. Time is up. The correct answer, opposite and congruent. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if both pairs of opposite angles are congruent. Did you get the correct answer? If so, then well done. And the last number is number 5. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if each blank divides a parallelogram into 2 blank. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if each blank divides a parallelogram into 2 blank. 5 seconds. The correct answer is diagonal and congruent triangles. A quadrilateral is a parallelogram if each diagonal divides a parallelogram into 2 congruent triangles. Did you get the correct answer? Very good. Always remember the different conditions that guarantee that a quadrilateral is a parallelogram. These conditions are useful in solving the unknown sides, angles, and lengths of the diagonals. That can be discussed in the next lesson. That is all for your assessment. For your assignment, answer, let us enhance of your Quarter 3, Mathematics 9, Module 1, Lesson 1, page 8. Kindly write your answer in your notebook for checking at the time set in the weekly home learning plan. That ends our lesson for today. Stay tuned next week for a discussion on the properties of a parallelogram. Let us turn you over to Teacher Melissa. Until next time.
Thank you, Teacher Annabelia. For you to understand our lesson further, you may do the exercises provided in your modules. You may also have an advanced study of your topics to prepare yourself for your next lesson. Remember that the key to mastering mathematics is constant and diligent practice. Please make sure to be with us next session here at the School on the Air program of the Department of Education. This has been Melissa P. Bucot, your radio host. Keep safe, everyone!